Good evening, everyone. Shalom. I'd also like to thank our hosts for the evening, Rabbi Gutnick and Danny, and East Melbourne Shul, and the RCV, and of course the Sacks Trust. I would also like to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this land in which East Melbourne Shul is situated. As a people of tradition, we appreciate and recognize their ownership and their contribution to this country. Occasionally, in the history of the Jewish encounter with God, a thinker arises who lets us see our ancient tradition in a new light. Like a poet describing an emotion we instantly recognize, but we're never able to articulate. When this happens within a faith, then old texts reverberate with new meaning. Acts we had performed unthinkingly 1,000 times stand revealed in their depth and their power. As if for the first time, we begin to understand why those who came before us did as they did, and we and the tradition are renewed. These are the words and the sentiments of Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, speaking about the prodigious contribution of Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, the profound leader and intellectual giant of the 20th century. But they could equally be a description of his own immense impact on Jewish life and thought over the past 50 years. He, Rabbi Sacks, opened our eyes to the depth and the breadth of our regnant texts. He reminded us of their relevance and of their power in our lives. And like a skillful miner of words, Jonathan Sacks revealed new and rich seams of meaning in countless Torah texts, from the biblical to the Talmudic, the legal to the liturgical. It was like we were seeing them for the first time. Like a brilliant virtuoso, he did it with beauty, he did it with style, and his finely articulated thoughts made our minds leap and our souls sing. He was at once a superstar, a modern-day global prophet, respected by royalty and rabbis, political leaders and influencers, philosophers and poets, clerics of diverse faiths, and the Pintel Yidden, the grassroots ordinary Jews. He was my muse and my model since I first met him as a young rabbi in South Africa some 35 years ago. So what was it? What was it that impelled this man onto the world stage? What made him, in the words of the Times newspaper, one of the greatest public and intellectuals of the age? One of the greatest challenges of our maddeningly complex, often ugly and troubled world is how to live with balance and with beauty. How to achieve that fine harmony between mind and heart, between justice and compassion. How to maintain your sanity and integrity in a super-connected social media environment, and how to cope and find courage in an age of COVID. And for people of faith, the challenge is exacerbated. How do we live honestly and passionately with, as Rabbi Sacks' words, tradition in an untraditional age? How do we live with moderation and love at a time of extremism? How do we confront religious violence when the best lack all conviction and the worst are filled with passionate intensity, as the Irish poet Yeats put it? Rabbi Jonathan Sacks not only recognized and defined these challenges, he also refined their parameters and he untangled their complexity. He was a prodigious and prolific writer, and the more he wrote, the simpler, more elegant, and more accessible he became. When he verbalized an idea in a witty aphorism or a compelling epigram, it all just seemed so right and natural, as though he was simply articulating what we were thinking and feeling, or what we were grappling to understand and to express. His teachings continue to inform and enliven the lives of so many across the world. Jonathan Sacks was unafraid to confront the big questions and to offer big answers. To the Jews struggling with the purpose of tefillah, of prayer and mitzvot, the Jews struggling with their own doubts and failures of faith, or with the inscrutability of suffering, or the reason to remain Jewish in a hostile world, or the mission of Medinat Yisrael as a modern-day state, he provided answers. Not easy answers, but cogent and compelling arguments. His clarity was breathtaking. He refreshed and he gave life to the idea of Brit or covenant. He would often say, we are the people of the covenant with God, and a covenant is different from a contract in that it is irrevocable, enduring relationship with Hashem. We have a duty, a responsibility, and we have a capacity, he said, to play a part in the conversation of humanity, of society, and to help heal a fractured world. And to those burdened and burnt out, he offered solace and hope to anguished hearts. He distinguished between facile optimism and the substantive confidence of faith and hope that has always nurtured Judaism. He was down-to-earth philosopher with a deep understanding of human frailty and failure in a bruising world often that he understood of community broigus and other things. And he reminded all Jews, in his words, whose heroes were that we are a people whose heroes are our teachers, whose citadels are schools, and whose passion is study and the life of the mind. And to the power brokers and politicians, he was both a friend and an unsettling sage, unafraid to talk truth to power. He spoke about the politics of hope. He gave a profound and humane analysis of the dangers of libertarian individualism and the meaning of true liberal values. So covenant, in his understanding, was not exclusive to us, to the Bnei Avraham, or the Brit that took place at Sinai, who he spoke to of a global covenant, something like that of given to Noach, to all humanity, a template to build a fairer, a more equitable, a more moral society. He courageously tackled the problems of multiculturalism and its unintended consequences of producing a society of conflicting ghettos and non-intersecting lives. He proposed a narrative that would reinvigorate the concept of the common shared good. To the philosophers and the scientists and the theologians, he addressed the false dichotomy between science and religion and what he called the tired arguments of militant atheists. Religion, he would say, has got a vital role in tempering and developing the scientific conversation. Religion brings meaning and inspiration to the scientific endeavor. It gives civilization its soul. And we need to pay attention because, quote, history clearly teaches that when a society loses its soul, it will soon after lose its future. Jonathan Sacks spoke to us all of the gift of freedom and the responsibility to honor and enhance the freedom of others. He wrote and spoke about the necessity of listening acutely, of avoiding the trap of unchecked individualism, of celebrating life and finding happiness in unexpected places. He was himself a superb listener with a refined heart. Listen, 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 he would say, for you are the auditory people. You are the people of the ear who believe more in the power of the Shema Yisrael, or the idea of hearing, than the dubious perspective and shifting perspective of the eye. He was a rabbi's rabbi. He was a moral philosopher with an impeccable Cambridge and Oxford record. And his capacity to fuse the best of Western intellectual tradition and the Jewish tradition made him one of Judaism's finest leaders. He was one of the most passionate advocates of modern orthodoxy, or what he preferred to call Torah v'chokhmah, Torah and wisdom. He spoke directly to my heart. He acknowledged that the love of literature, of music, of psychology, of philosophy, the arts, and pop culture were not only legitimate, but all could be infused and synthesized with a love of Torah, a fealty to halakha, and a passion for Talmud. That's what Torah v'chokhmah is at its very best. Lord Sacks often made the distinction between power and influence. As he states in one of his final books, the choice humankind faces in every age is between the idea of power and the power of the idea. Judaism has always believed in the power of ideas, and it remains the only non-violent way to change the world. Ideas are about influence. They transform us. They help us redeem the world. Freud said we are only strong if we've got strong ideas. And Rabbi Jonathan Sacks was a strong man, an accomplished wrestler of powerful ideas and ideals. Rabbi Jonathan, Yaakov Tzvi ben David Arya, to echo your own tribute to Leonard Cohen, thank you for teaching us how to recognize the crack in everything which lets the light in, how to appreciate the informed heart, how to learn and how to live as Jews in an often dark and cold world. You taught us how to let the light in. You brought in a little more hope and kindness, righteousness and redemption into our planet. You gave us the language and the liberation, the responsibility and the inspiration to continue your vision.